This is Keith Fraser for Seconds Out. I'm here with Ronnie Davies, Chris Eubank Jr.'s trainer, at the beginning of the press conference for the George Groves against Chris Eubank Jr. super middleweight semi-final for the World Boxing Super Series. Ronnie, good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Now, Ronnie, this is huge. This is a big fight for Chris Eubank Jr. It's probably the biggest fight of his career, wouldn't you agree?
Oh yeah, of course it is. Yeah, it's a big testing point for him, for him and a lot of people out there watching him. But he's gone.
Well, he's been obviously quite devastating, certainly in the last fight, and he performed well against Arthur Abraham. So, would you say he's now comfortable at this super middleweight level?
Yeah, he always was, in my opinion. For the last year and a half, he's been a super middleweight. The last few pounds when he boxed at middleweight was too hard for him, in my opinion, to get off. He walks about just over 12 stone. It's ridiculous, really. He's a very small super middleweight, but a very powerful super middleweight. So it don't matter. As long as he's maintained his strength, I'm not worried about him giving a few pounds away. That doesn't matter.
It's interesting because if there's one criticism that people have had of Chris Eubank Jr. is people have questioned his punching power. Would you say that moving up to super middleweight has and will help that, do you think?
Yes, without a doubt. He's punching so much harder now. He's matured now. He's 28 now. He's a man, proper man. He's learned, because he's always had fantastic hand speed. So a lot of that, he lost a bit of power through the hand speed, but now he's worked the power in with the hand speed. So he's going to be devastating, which he proved in his last fight.
Look, he's moved up from middleweight to super middleweight. Assuming he beats Groves, assuming he wins the Super Series, do you think that he may even go back down to middleweight at some time? And there's just some big clashes down at middleweight. You've got Triple G, you've got Billy Joe Saunders. What is your opinion on that?
Yeah, he could make the weight. He can make it easy enough, and if he can be strong at it, then fair enough. That'd be good. He'd have to bring a nutrition, I think, on board. Yeah, if he's only weighing 12 stone, which he is now, he can make middleweight. So he's superbly strong at any weight, middleweight or super, or even light heavy.
So potentially there's a huge number of clashes and super fights out there in both divisions. You've got, even if he wins this series, you've got James DeGale perhaps at the end of the road. You've got, as I said, the move down to middleweight where you've got Triple G, which never happened up until now. Billy Joe Saunders rematch, which could be potentially very lucrative. Oh
yeah, there's loads of them. He could even step up to light heavyweight. He's that powerful. I mean, I'll put him in with, he spars with heavyweights, light heavyweights, cruiserweights. But he spars with all different weights, so he can adapt whatever's in front of him. But he's got that power and strength, unbelievable strength.
And what does he do differently for the George Groves fight? This is obviously the biggest test in his career. George Groves now is the man with experience. How does he prepare for George Groves, and how do you kind of see that panning out?
You do nothing different than what he's been doing all the time. He trains to deal with any situation. So there won't be anything any different at all. We're not stepping up, we're not doing any different. He will train as he's trained for every fight from day one.
And also, obviously, we see Chris Eubank Sr. in his corner a lot. You're obviously training junior, but what influence does his father have? Do you think it's enough? Do you think it's too much?
No, it's just right. It works well. We work well together. We talk in between the rounds. You can only one man can speak, so he can speak. And sometimes he said to me, "Do you want to speak to him?" I go, "Yeah." Or I go, "No." It works. We work out well between us. Don't forget, me and Eubank go back 20 odd years. Longer than that, I think. I don't know.
Well, let's not be too finicky over the numbers. But so you're happy. It's a happy camp. You've got, obviously, his father's got all the experience. Yourself, we trained his father. Out of the two, Eubank Senior and Eubank Junior, what similarities are there in their styles and potentially how far Junior could go?
Well, they're both supremely confident. They've got great self-belief. You can't budge them, and they both know how to win. And different. I mean, Eubanks was a one-punch. He could take him out one punch. Junior's not so much, although he's getting there now. But he's accumulation of punches. He breaks them up. So that's the only difference in them, really. They're both very similar.
Well, I remember Sugar Ray Leonard in his day, obviously one of the all-time greats, if not the all-time great, saying that he was never a big puncher, he was a consistent puncher. If the first one doesn't get you, the next flurry will. Would you put him along similar lines in that kind of talk?
Yeah, I would do, yeah, and Sugar Ray Robinson. I modelled him on Sugar Ray Robinson. I thought was the greatest fighter of all time, in my opinion. And With Eubanks, he punches on the move. With Senior, he's to set himself. So he's that a little bit slower. Junior is on the move, and he punches, and he's now punching hard on the move, which is it's hard to do. I mean, Sugar Ray Robins could knock a man out on the move, so could Leonard. Not many people do that.
So this fight come up with George Groves. How do you see it going? Of course, you're going to back your man to win, but what do you see? How do you see it panning out, that fight? Because it is a fantastically intriguing one for the fans.
Of course it is. Yeah, I expect a hard fight, but I think Eubanks is going to be too young, too fresh, and too ambitious for George.
Knockout?
Stoppage or knockout? Yeah, without a doubt. It won't go the distance. Eubanks will break him up.
Well, you've heard it from the horse's mouth, or almost the horse's mouth. Ronnie, very nice to see you. I'm looking forward to a great fight. Wish you the best of luck.
Thanks very much. Thank you.